Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. On the program today, we're going to be talking about sex. Yeah, usually when people approach midlife, the desire may be there a little bit, but it feels like the flame is slightly becoming extinguished. Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is a wonderful naturopathic physician who's been in the business for more than 20 years, has a wonderful practice out of Honolulu. She is also the co-author of Great Sex Naturally, Every Woman's Guide to Enhancing Her Sexuality Through the Secrets of Natural Medicine. And I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our guest, Dr. Lori Steele-Smith.
Oh, thank you so much.
How are you doing today?
I'm great. Just went
That's
for a
kind of
swim.
neat to be a male talking with a woman about sex, but hey, why not? That way we get a nice balanced view about what's going on here.
That's
You know,
right.
it's really interesting. I was just thinking about this last night, and, I remember when, as a male, as being a teenager, and you're chasing girls down and you're just feeling that desire, and that sort of a thing, and then you hear girls always saying, it seems like boys only want one thing. And then by the time women start to get into their 30s and 40s, it seems that it reverses. And I wonder, does it get better when they become 50? I mean, where they become more ravenous, it seems like, where the men are kind of like, hey, hold on, I need to put my feet up for the day here.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I think it's happening in both sexes, and that's why my husband and I wrote this book, is because I had so many women coming into my office saying, where did my libido go? And how come the word sex just doesn't convey the same sense of magic and excitement that it once did? And so what can I do to get my sex drive back? So I think that also couples that have been in relationship for a long time, they want to know what they can do to rekindle those flames of passion so they can share their most intimate selves and their most sacred part of themselves, with the person that they love.
Mm-hmm. Now, what is it, we're talking about obviously married couples, but then there are also people who are in relationships for a long time that may not be together that way, and it feels like, for instance, in the beginning of a relationship, that it's crazy, it's hot and heavy, but then eventually it begins to wane, and then pretty soon, and it tends to be, at times, males. I say usually women kind of follow suit afterwards, but males tend to kind of start looking over their shoulder and losing interest. What do you think that really is?
Well, I think that there's one thing that's just sexual desire that sort of that isn't linked to true nurturing, caring, and love, and then there's sexual desire that is it's much deeper than that. And in the book, I do talk about something called salubrious sex. And so what is that? Well, it's deeply healing sex, and it's something that you can experience with someone that you really care for. And I think that men kind of want that rush, right? They want that intense rush with somebody new. But I think they also want something else, and that's a deeply loving experience. And they can have that through a different kind of sexual dance. In America, they say that most sexual interactions are sort of an 8-minute gyration that ends in male climax, but often not in female. And sometimes it does. I think I say somewhere around 60% of women actually do climax with their partners. And I think that they're really looking for something different. I think they're looking for something, their energy's changed, right? When you're young, you're quite randy, you've got all these hormones, you don't know what to do with them. And it's a very different energy that men have when they're older. I mean, I live with a man who's 56, we've been together 25 years, and it's a different energy. And so how do you change your sexual dance to match that?
Now, when it happens that you see couples where they come to a point where it seems to be an impasse, they really do love each other, but there's that moment where maybe the sexual part of their relationship has been stagnant for a little bit, and maybe one or both of the partners kind of want to connect, but there's that uncomfortable feeling like, we've kind of been away from this for so long. I hope I'm kind of phrasing this correctly, and it feels sort of uncomfortable to try that reconnection. Have you had that experience with people?
Well, I'm not really a sex therapist, right? I'm a naturopathic
See, we're making
doctor.
Assumptions here because we're talking about sex, but what the heck?
Yeah, and I mean, really what I work with people on is that I'm working a lot, definitely with the emotional, but individuals usually come to me rather than couples. And really what they're after, they want to know how they can rebuild this powerful life force, that sexual energy. And usually they're feeling tired, they're exhausted. Men are having lower levels of testosterone because their adrenals are burned out. Women are going through perimenopause. Their hormones are all over the place. They're going through transition. These couples are going through transition, and they realize they really love each other, but they just don't know how to, pull it together so that they, maybe in this couple that you're talking about, how do they go over that bridge where they've been kind of stagnant for a while, and then how do they become more intimate? And I really truly see that it's about nurturing and loving each other at this phase of life versus having that sort of intense, sort of sparky desire that you have when you're younger. It's a very different sexual energy, and I think that you can kind of get over that bridge in a couple that has been stagnant by first just cuddling and touching, and then exploring this idea of sort of more transformative sex, where your goal isn't necessarily climax, but the goal is actually to share in the intense pleasure of the sexual union, and to deeply show your love for each other and experience pretty heightened ecstatic states together.
Now, you outline what are known as 9 simple natural ways to get out of libido limbo. So you did move it over away from more of the emotional into kind of the physical reasons people are kind of feeling, sort of a low libido, if you will, or that sexual energy. Now, as people approach midlife, obviously, hormones will deplete or they'll go down a little bit. But what you suggest here kind of can help level these things up a little bit without actually doing hormone replacement therapy. Would that be kind of a fair way to look at it?
Well, yes. I have a whole chapter on balancing your hormones, and because I am a naturopathic doctor, I utilize all the other possibilities first, everything from homeopathic medicines, aromatherapy. We do acupressure and acupuncture. But we want to definitely balance our hormones. We want to definitely support the adrenal glands, because as women are going through perimenopause into menopause, their ovaries go through a career change. And their adrenals have to pick up where the ovaries left off. And if they enter that phase of life and they're exhausted, what happens is that the adrenal glands just can't keep up. The woman experiences a lower stress tolerance, and so then she's on overwhelm all the time. She can't sleep at night because she's having hot flashes or night sweats, and it's really important that we shore up the adrenal glands, and we can do that with our botanical medicines. We can do that with nutritional supplementation. We can even do it with potatoes, sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are very high in vitamin B5, and that helps to shore up the adrenal glands. So
bake up those sweet potato pies, folks. It's more than just a dessert. It's a libido livener or something like that.
And then in some cases, I will use bioidentical natural hormones. And in particular, one of the most important areas to address is for women who are going through perimenopause and menopause, and they're experiencing vaginal and vulvar dryness. And this is a real thing, ladies and guys out there, too. I mean, a lot of couples come to me and they're like, I don't want to hurt her. It seems like when we have sex, it hurts. And she gets a urinary tract infection after every act of intercourse, or, some women even could bleed. And the bleeding isn't from the uterus. It's because they tear a little bit, because the tissues there are estrogen dependent. They can, without estrogen, they lose their connective tissue. They can get thinner and drier. So using a very low-dose bioidentical estrogen called estriol topically on these tissues just 2 to 3 times a week can really hydrate them, or what I call fluff them up, and help them have better integrity. For women who can't use this kind of thing, then there are some really lovely over-the-counter lubricants that they can use on a daily basis that are 100% aloe or vitamin E, and they're lovely compounds that they can use on a daily basis. So I highly recommend that this is something that women know about, men know about, and that we take care of it before it actually becomes something that becomes a problem in the relationship. In addition, research has found that you kind of have to use it or lose it. So the more sex you have, guess what? The better the tissue integrity is. So, really good idea to maintain sexual activity in the relationship.
Well, certainly there's no doubt that it could be a lot of fun, too. What I got a kick out of was a couple of these things that you have on here on your 9 steps to get out of libido limbo, and one that caught me was get sex-enhancing exercise.
Okay.
Now, the interesting thing I thought about that is, here people go about their day, they're at work, and of course exercise is the last thing on their minds a lot of times after a long day, and perhaps the kids, whatever the case may be. But, I took a look at this and I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. I don't know that I've actually seen something like this before in the 15 years I've been broadcasting. Tell us about this Get Sex Enhancing exercise. What's that all about?
Okay, so one of the first things, and this book was a book written for women, so I'm going to be focusing more on what women can do, and then you and I can elaborate on what men can do.
Yeah, but let's go ahead and let them know this, okay, Lori? Is men, listen.
Okay.
This is what women want. When you understand this, then you will be leaps and bounds ahead of most men that are out there. It's like I used to say, Lori, I would actually tell men this: have the woman enjoy the orgasms first. We can do it easily any time. She comes first, and I promise you she won't leave you alone.
Well, there you go. You're a good man.
and it's fun too. Oh,
I'm
honey,
sure
you really look like you enjoyed yourself, even if you did fake it the last 10 times. So
I'm sure your wife or your girlfriend or whoever your partner is very happy.
Anyway, this is about what women want. So Get Sex Enhancing exercise is one of the things here.
So one of the things that I see is that a lot of, I've just seen over the years that a lot of dis-ease, is really due to a disconnect with the body. So helping women to get into their pelvis is really important for not only strengthening this incredible muscle down there called the pubococcygeal muscle, also I'm just going to call it the PC muscle. This PC muscle keeps organs in place. This PC muscle prevents incontinence. This PC muscle, when it's strong, women will experience more sexual pleasure. So how do we strengthen that? Well, there are certain exercises like Pilates really helps you get into your pelvis, right? You I don't know if you've ever done it, but you kind of do this little zip-up thing in the front with your ribs and your abdominals, and then also you do a Kegel. You do a Kegel before you start any Pilates exercise. Second, there are some incredible tools that women can use to strengthen this PC muscle directly, and there's a product called Vagicare that is basically vaginal weightlifting. And they put a little device in their vagina. It's like a little egg, but you can put little weights inside the egg to increase the weight. And it's an incredible tool for helping women to increase the PC muscle, bring their chi, energy, vitality into their pelvis, and it helps prevent all these conditions as well as gives them more sexual pleasure in the long run. Other sex-enhancing exercises, including those that are super fun. I mean, women love to dance. Women love to move their bodies. And to put them into a belly dancing class, put them into a hula class, put them into a Zumba class, put them into, classes, dance classes that help them to get into their pelvis. And
salsa
it's okay.
would be a good one, right?
What's that?
Salsa would be a good one.
I still didn't hear it.
Salsa dancing.
Salsa dancing, absolutely, yeah.
Because I'll tell you guys, I actually went to a world salsa competition in Portland, Oregon. And, just to let you know, guys, the women were pretty hot there. And the dancing was pretty wonderful as well. I mean, it was exciting to watch. And it's something couples can do and really enjoy themselves. So it's something to think about, guys.
So I think that, these kinds of exercises, and I think that couples dancing together is also a very socially acceptable plus a very intimate thing to do. And it's a way of being very flirtatious and yet very sexy at the same time. So I think that dance together, but if men don't like to dance, then, I definitely don't want him to be doing that. So I think whatever is going to help that woman to get into her pelvis, and, often I've thought that this book was something that men were going to be buying for their partners because it does give women a lot of tips and tools to help them to create their best sexual health. I mean, that's really what the goal of the book is, and it's to help couples stay together. I mean, that's what I've seen over the years in my practice. There's so many women where the guy is like, well, come on, I love you, you're so beautiful, I want to be with you, and she's just like, nah, I'm just not interested, I'm tired, I'd rather read my book,
And be careful with this, guys, because as you decide to get this book for your wife or your partner, you don't stick it to her and say, here should correct what's wrong with you. That's right up there with saying, honey, have you gained weight? No, these are things, men, that you just don't say.
You know what? I mean, I think if we were to give one piece of advice to men, I mean, the women in their lives, they just want to be loved. I mean, that's it. They just want to be deeply loved and cherished. And, sex that shows that they're deeply loved and cherished, kind of like the type of sex you were talking about earlier, is is really what women want. And like you said, if you do give her sexual pleasure first, she will be responsive. In fact, they talk about in Chinese medicine that men are like a small pot of water on a very large flame, whereas in terms of their sexual energy, and women are a very large pot of water on a very small flame. So men heat up very quickly, but they also can boil over very quickly, whereas women, we tend to heat up very slowly, but once we're warmed up, we can stay hot for hours.
There you go. So see, you're actually saying, or you're supporting what I said earlier, guys, the woman comes first. Do that, and it'll be fine. Now, here was one that you had here that kind of surprised me, and I don't think a lot of people would actually think about this, but it was detox your home for better sex drive. Now, as I was reading about that, I thought, this kind of makes a lot of sense. This is something you just don't think about, tying your, the cleanliness or the clarity of your home to your sex drive.
Well, let's think about this. If you have a lot of environmental chemicals around your house and you are using them for cleaning products and you've got them in your garage and your liver's being exposed to these things on a daily basis and you're using Teflon pans and you're using a lot of plastics and you're cooking in a microwave with them, right, with the saran wrap, and it's dripping into your food.
To it.
I know. Well, let's think about it. A lot of people do this, right?
They do.
You are being exposed to a lot of estrogen mimickers. It's going to monkey with a man's hormones, and it's really going to monkey with hormones too. And when women have hormonal balance, believe me, they don't feel sexy. They feel bloated and fat and poor digestion, and they've got PMS, and they're crabby, and they're weepy, and So a big part of the first part of the book is how can we get our bodies functioning optimally, and one of them is detoxification of your environment as well as your internal environment. Hence, I created a 21-day cleanse that people can do in order to balance their hormones. I mean, ultimately, it's to balance the liver. It's to help the liver to conjugate or break down hormones, and then to help them balance their overall body hormones, too. Because if you are fighting these chemicals on a daily basis, you don't feel good.
I could believe that. Now, here's the interesting thing. When we pay attention to print, television, radio, all these kinds of ads, generally what they suggest is that you take something from the outside and put it into yourself. But, right now we've just touched on pretty much two of them that don't have anything to do with that. The first one is cleansing your home and being careful the kinds of things that you not only cook your food in, but that you store your food in as well. And I completely agree with that. In fact, one of the things I encourage people, having been in cooking in kitchens for a lot of years, is, eliminate aluminum if you can. And you see pots and pans you can buy that are aluminum, just get rid of it. I always say cast iron skillets, stainless steel, usually for boiling or heating things up, and then, clay, if possible, for baking, because those are things that you find, at least two of those things, in the earth. You get the iron kind of from the pan, so I kind of make, hey, get rid of the microwave. You really don't need that.
Yeah, I think we need to get rid of the microwaves, too. They just, I just think there's something wrong.
Now, this next one is also a really cool one, and I think it's probably centered to be able to getting a lot of these things really to be good, and that is use your mind to create a sexy lifestyle.
Well, that's a very important piece of it, because I'll tell you, I think that positive affirmations, having a positive outlook on things when, things seem to be heading south and it seems like your world is unraveling, I think that having a positive attitude about the fact that, it's not always going to be this way. And, I do see that people that are stuck in the complain gear and stuck in the sort of victim gear end up staying there. And instead of seeing how positive and beautiful life actually is and just what a miracle it is that they're alive. And I think that the mind has a lot to do with your intimate relationship with your partner and your self-esteem and the choices that you make. So there is a whole chapter that addresses this, and I think it's very important because when we have low self-esteem, we make low-esteeming decisions. So on a scale of 0 to 100, if you're feeling like a 100, you're going to make a 100 decision. But if you're feeling like a 2, and sometimes we feel like a 2, but it's not the time to be making decisions when you're a 2. Right? But if you're always a 2, then you're probably going to make 2 decisions. And it's very important to bring to consciousness what you are doing with your monkey mind, as the Dalai Lama calls it. The Americans have a monkey mind that just keeps bouncing around in all the directions. and to bring that to consciousness and to, take note of when you're driving and you're starting to get into road rage and laugh at yourself and let it go and learn to just let it go, and also learn to see adversity as a potential for opportunity. I mean, isn't that what in Chinese medicine they talk about, right? That any time there's chaos, it's an opportunity for change and for something positive to come out of it. So shifting attitude, I think, is very important. And then as we apply that to our sex life, I do see women getting into this place of, the couple gets stuck in a gear of, like you were talking about earlier, of no intimacy. We've just gotten used to that, and yet both people are frustrated because they know that it could be more. There could be more intimacy. There could be a much deeper, more loving experience happening, and but both people become sort of complacent with the situation. And I think we need to kind of shake that up a little bit and go, wait a minute, that isn't what creates a long-term loving relationship. Maybe one of you is going to go a-wandering, and yet you love each other and you do want it to work, so let's make it work.
The other thing, too, I was just thinking of, Laurie, when you talk about how to use your mind to create a sexy lifestyle, is that you take a look, especially in America and industrialized societies with advertising, and a lot of times we take on messages for years. I mean, these start from the time you turn on a television, you understand what's going on, and until whatever. And what you see a lot in advertising messages are comparisons. This is what you should be like. So you have that sense of inadequacy. So I'd kind of also suggest to the listeners that take a look at your beliefs, for instance, and find out how did you come to have those beliefs and see that they don't serve you and kind of eliminate those. And I would think that would also help people, because I see that, kind of getting rid of that inhibition that you may have, or being able to suspend judgment, whether it's on your partner or on yourself, to have more clarity about who you are would actually make something like having a sexy lifestyle just sort of come naturally in a mental state.
Oh, that's beautifully said. Absolutely. It's very important for us to look at, some of the patterns or addictive mental patterns that we can get in, never mind the other addictive things that we may do, like overwork. And how does that serve you? How does it really serve you? And then to dissect that out and realize maybe it serves me only 80%, but I really need to take care of the other 20%, which is self-nurture, self-care, and creating more time, not just for yourself, but for your relationship to be able to thrive.
Couldn't agree with you more, Laura. I just thought that was such an important point to, for people to understand when it comes to, what is that loop thinking, that monkey mind, as you were talking about? What are those beliefs? And, if they don't support and you're not feeling happy, find where they came from and find a way to let them go.
In many ways, I think we all need to go and live in another culture, not a Western culture, but just another culture, so that we can just see how, oh my gosh, other human beings have really different neuronal networks in their brain, and they really do think differently about their relationships, about themselves. I mean, we have so many options. And if we are feeling stuck in certain patterns in our relationships and our dynamics, we actually have a million other options. But we have to be able to have the expansion of awareness to be able to realize that.
And you bring up something really, I think, fascinating too, Laurie, about this idea of these choices is I think sometimes, or most of the time, that we have so many choices that it leaves us standing almost like a deer in headlights, where we need people to tell us what to do or how to do things. And obviously, to say that, there must be a lot of truth, because if you look at YouTube, the YouTube channel, for instance, one of the most popular searches, if not the most popular search, are people trying to find ways to do things. It's like we just forgot how to learn or how to implement, what we have learned, and we just can't count on ourselves anymore. And it's crazy.
Well, I do think that life is one of the most amazing things about it is that we are constantly evolving people. Right. And, in Chinese medicine, one of the things that we want to avoid is stagnation. And in the book, I have a whole chapter on pelvic health. And, stagnation does manifest itself in the physical, right? So women with fibroids and ovarian cysts and heavy periods and clots, and, these are all signs of stagnation. And so whether we're talking about the mental, emotional, spiritual, we don't want to see stagnation there, and we also don't want to see it in our bodies, because stagnation leads to pain, suffering, and formation of masses in the body. So again, in the book, I offer lots of natural tools on what women can do to try to correct these particular conditions that are due from what we call in Chinese medicine stagnation.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things you talk about is that you cleanse your body from the inside out. Now, does that really help people change a lot of things that maybe they couldn't expect?
Well, like we were talking about earlier, that 21-day cleanse,
right?
When you take away things in your diet that are creating inflammation, you will have more energy, and you will have better clarity of mind, and you will feel better. And when you feel better, you make better choices. And when you make better choices, you have higher self-esteem. And when you have higher self-esteem, you are more attractive to the opposite sex, and you find other people more attractive too, because you're not just stuck in a bloated, headachy, stagnant body. And you're crabby.
This ship is overloaded and it's not sailing more than 2 knots. Forget about it. Now, I like this one here that you talk about is that we minimize anti-aphrodisiac foods. At first I thought I read that as minimize aphrodisiac foods, and I thought, okay, wait a minute, but it's anti-aphrodisiac foods, okay? What would those be, actually?
Okay, well, they're the same things that make us feel bloated and headachy and constipated and crabby. Right. And those things would be, A, too much alcohol. I mean, let's face it, there is no place for too much alcohol in women's health, and especially hard alcohol. There's just no place for it. It messes up your liver. Your liver doesn't work well in breaking hormones down. It makes you fat. It increases your blood sugar and your triglycerides. It gives you a fatty liver. It increases the growth of yeast, so you get more vaginal infections. It destroys brain cells. I mean, there's a million reasons why this is an anti-aphrodisiac.
And if there's anyone that I know as big as my bartender days would attest, it makes people tremendously obnoxious, and that's just very unsexy. Believe me. Yeah, honey, you were cute until you drank and opened your mouth. I think you've had enough. It's time to go because you're not looking so cute anymore. So.
Right. And some of the other things would be, fried food. I mean, just forget it.
Right. And caffeine too.
And too much caffeine. I learned this in doing research for this book. In fact, I learned a lot doing research for this book, is that caffeine actually can lower testosterone. So here you think about those men with those big bellies, right? And they drink, 2 pots of coffee a day. Ugh. Those men who have those big bellies and drink all that coffee, they have a very low testosterone and they have very high estrogen, and they're at higher risk for prostate cancer and breast cancer. Men who have a lot of what we call insulin resistance from eating a lot of beer. I mean, beer is a phytoestrogen. I don't know if they know that it's a plant estrogen because it's made from hops. Right. And hops, we actually use that to help mitigate the symptoms of menopause. You know what I mean? And so, guys, if you're strutting around with that big beer belly, it's time to make some changes, and you will feel so much better. And I really want to stress, too, that, I have a chapter in here on men's health, and, one of the things that has been a huge seller here in the mega pharmaceutical industrial complex is Viagra, right? It's been a sensation, right? And I'm glad that it exists. I'm happy for men. I'm happy for couples. I'm glad that it's there. But there's one thing that is really missing with Viagra, and Viagra will give you an erection, but it will do nothing to increase libido, and it will do nothing to increase your virility and your strength and your power and your manliness. It does nothing. It does nothing. So we really need to look at the underlying cause of ED, whether it's emotional or physical, or beta blockers, right? I mean, beta blockers can cause ED, and a lot of men don't know this. And here they are, 55 years old. They had high blood pressure. They've been put on beta blockers, and, there are other medications that they can use, and in addition, all the lifestyle things that they need to do in order to bring their blood pressure down. So I really want to stress that, one thing that we want to look at is how do we create this overall health and vitality, because that is what's going to beget that powerful life force, and that powerful life force is sexual energy.
Now, we'll go ahead and touch on one more, even though, we don't have time to touch on all of them, but I thought these were some really key ones, just to kind of give our listeners a recap of what we've talked about was get sex-enhancing exercise. You suggested dancing. Guys, take up a salsa club with your wife, I'm telling you. You're going to enjoy that. Use your mind to create a sexy lifestyle. We talked about how you think and how you can manage your stress, but also kind of start examining some of those beliefs that you may have that don't serve you anymore, that you can move into making better decisions as well. Then we just recently talked about minimizing anti-aphrodisiac foods in your diet as well, talking about those things that make you bloated, feeling heavy, things like that. And then also cleansing your home as well as your body from the inside out. Very, very key things. We'll go ahead and touch on one more. People tend to lean, when they want to go natural, toward herbal supplements, and in this case you talk about try herbal aphrodisiacs. What are some of those that you can talk about there?
Oh, my goodness, yeah. Well, I've got a list of 12 key aphrodisiacs that are for women, and at least men can use all of them, but a few of them in particular are quite powerful for men as well. Some of my favorite have to do with how they work in terms of Chinese medicine, and yet modern medicine has validated how they work and why they work. I mean, here we have Chinese ginseng or Panax ginseng, Korean ginseng, they're all the same thing, that has been passed down for thousands of years to be something that really helps as a sexual tonic, and it helps to build that sort of powerful yang or male energy, okay? And for men, it's something that can increase circulation, it's warming, it helps build sort of the fire in their body, sort of the passionate fire in their body. It contains gissenicides, is what they found, that can also increase your physical and mental efficiency. It has some ability to also increase nitric oxide, which increases circulation, which then increases dilation of the blood vessels, so that men who maybe just have a little bit of erectile dysfunction can use this instead. It is one of those herbs that for women, they found that for women who suffer from the vaginal dryness that we talked about earlier, that if they take it orally, that it can help to hydrate the vaginal tissues. So Chinese ginseng is a pretty amazing herb, and I use it in a lot of the different formulas that I give to patients. One of the ones that I know that we're not going to be able to get to all of them, but I really want to mention ginkgo because I think people are familiar with it, and it's an herb that people think of to increase memory, right, because it increases circulation in the brain. Well, it also increases circulation all over the body because it, too, will increase nitric oxide, which will increase vasodilation, so it can promote blood flow to the vagina and the vulva. And what they found in a study published in the Journal of Sex and Marital Therapy is that for people who are on antidepressant medications, which it's notorious for lowering sex drive, right? It's like, great, I'm not depressed, but I never want to have sex again. That they found that ginkgo increased all four phases of the sexual response in men and women men seem to respond more than men. Women seem to respond more than men. So, ginkgo should be almost given alongside every order of Prozac or Paxil. So I think that's a very important herb. Another herb that's actually from South America is called Muria puama. A lot of people don't know about this herb. It's been used to lower erotic inhibitions and treat infertility and increase potency. Some of the studies in France found that it can increase libido in postmenopausal women, and when the Muria puama was given with ginkgo for a month, 65% reported significant increases in their frequency of sexual fantasies and desires, the rate of sexual intercourse, and overall satisfaction with their sex life. So really kind of neat herbs that help to not only help libido and sexual function, but also can help to support this overall energy in the body. And then finally, I'd like to mention maca, because maca is a Peruvian herb, and for men who are suffering from infertility, for instance, it's an herb that seemed to not have so much effect on libido as it did on increasing spermatogenesis, which means making healthy sperm that have great heads and great tails, and they're good swimmers. So maca is a really important herb for men, and then in women, it can increase libido and overall through its ability to overall balance hormones. For women in perimenopause and menopause, it's a wonderful herb that can really help women during this phase of life. It has a direct effect on the adrenal glands. And if you do get the book, you'll see that there's a lot of mention about supporting the adrenal glands, increasing stress tolerance, and trying to create better balance in your whole hormonal system, everything from thyroid to adrenals to your ovaries, and everything in between. So that's also a really fantastic herb for both men and women.
Fantastic. And there's also a few more that we can talk about. Unfortunately, we're out of time, even though this is starting to get really spicy, I'm sure, for our listeners. Could you, Lori, give out a website people can find out more?
Sure. My website is naturalchoicesforwomen.com, or my last name, which is just Dr. Steelsmith, STEELSMITH.com. And they can contact me through there if they'd like, and they can get the book off of Amazon.com.
Very good. 9 simple steps, natural ways to get out of libido limbo. Our guest today, Dr. Lori Steelsmith. Lori, thank you so much for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program. I see a lot of people getting energized about this.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Thank you again. We want to also thank you, the listeners. If you didn't quite get those websites down, be sure to visit us at beyond50radio.blogspot.com. We will have hot links for you there. You can just go ahead and connect directly as well. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Beyond 50 radio program. And remember, live your day past